Okay, everybody, this is my spoiler review of House of the Dragon Season 2, Episode 4, A Dance of Dragons. No book spoilers, please, in the comments. Okay, so Daemon is still bugging out here in Harrenhal, and it's really interesting what's going on with Daemon because all these visions he's having, these nightmares, whatever you want to call it, or if this is being caused by the drink that is being given to him by Alice, it's giving this character, Daemon, humanity to the character. We're getting into a deeper part of his psyche, actually feelings here of guilt, remorse, and fears. So we'll see in this first sequence with Daemon, he's actually seeing Cooke again as Rhaenyra, and she is on the throne, and she says, "You created me, Daemon, and now you're set on destroying me, all because your brother loved me more than he did you." And this will set Daemon off, but it's really Daemon talking to himself here, and he cuts her head off. And she says, "This is what you always wanted, is it not?" And you get true horror visual here of Cooke's face looking down and then saying, "There's been a raven." So I really like the horror aspect that's been going on with Daemon's story this season. It's also interesting that Daemon sees a black billy goat. Obviously, a lot of times that symbolizes Satan himself, or that there's something of witch involved, which I think is clearly the case here with Alice. He even calls her a witch in this episode, and that she could be causing these visions as well through the drink she gave him, or just in general in some way. But a big thing a black billy goat can represent is a mysterious hidden aspect of your psyche that you may not be fully aware of or in touch with. So I think that is exactly what that's symbolizing here with Daemon. That's exactly what he's going through. Now, there's always great humor with Daemon's character, and I love that he's going to meet Lord Grover, he thinks, but he meets his grandson, Oscar Tully, and he's stuttering like a true Tully, but he's heir to Riverrun and future Lord Paramount of the Riverlands. So he tells Daemon his grandfather is basically on his deathbed. And Daemon goes, "So he's alive." And he goes, "Yes, gods be good." And he has the best line of the episode where he says, "Well, my time is short and I have need of an army. Perhaps you might place a feather pillow over his head and speed along your inheritance." That made me laugh out loud. So he just wants him to speak on his grandfather's behalf to get this army, but he won't do it. So he goes, "House Tully is a fish with no head." Very fitting because their sigil is a fish, and you see the fish literally when he says that on his armor. And Daemon, frustrated by this, just summons the Blackwoods. Now I want to stick on Daemon's night terrors for a second. So we see, again, he has another one where he's following a version of himself that's an Aemond version. And I think this is important because Aemond idolizes Daemon, and they're very similar in many ways. And it's obviously someone who is a threat to Daemon. So they've been foreshadowing a showdown potentially of these two. There's going to be a very important connection with them. This is where he'll run into Alice Rivers. She's been the one saying weird things to him since he's been there. And she said the last maester fled in the night, she says. So she took over. So this is basically Harrenhal being cursed, she said. And she starts to strike a nerve with Daemon when she says, "Why no ravens? Plan to make your own claim. Prove yourself to her," talking about Rhaenyra. This is where he'll call her a witch. And I like they have a witch type character in the show now, because that always works so well in Game of Thrones. And she has a great line, "Does it please you her legitimacy is contested as you stand here with the castle and a dragon attempting to draw an army of men," pointing out that temptation he's feeling. And she gives him this drink to help him sleep. And how can you trust this character? And that drink makes him literally wake up in the middle of his meeting with the Blackwoods the next day. He's also seeing his ex-wife Lena here as a servant, so it's important he's even thinking about her, again going to this part of psyche that shows a little more humanity in Daemon, that he's thinking even of her. Now, the Blackwood promises his army if he takes care of the Brackens, so I'm sure that will be a quick scene in an upcoming episode, what Daemon will do next. Now, we'll also get a scene here, switching gears a bit, with Alyn again, and he meets Rhaenys for the first time, but she knows who he is. She says this to Corlys, and she's upset that he's letting Alyn's past stop him from being honored as he should be for saving his life, because she did not know he saved Corlys's life. Now, we don't know as the audience, especially in the show, I haven't read the books, but we don't know the backstory to Alyn, so it's going to be interesting to see what that past is that's alluded to here. And I hope they get going a little bit more with this Alyn story. We've seen him in every episode, but nothing's been made of it yet. Now, going to Alicent, she drops the toy dragon that's in her hand, and it breaks its right wing. So this is foreshadowing Meleys will bite Sunfire's right wing later on. This will be the dragon. She will lose on her side. Now, Alicent will take the same tea, let's call it the morning after tea, that Rhaenyra took, and it also has to be with the same person. It's another Criston Cole child that is being stopped. So you see that hypocrisy of Alicent, all the things she judges Rhaenyra on, she does herself, the secrecy that she had accused Rhaenyra of. Now, it's also interesting that Alicent will ask the Grand Maester here, do you believe Viserys wanted Aegon to succeed him? It's almost like she's feeding for some sort of relief of the truth of the situation she just heard from Rhaenyra, something just to feed the lie. But Grand Maester basically gives her the shoulder shrug answer, like, I have no clue. Now, while this is all going on, there's just chaos at the Council of Dragonstone because you just have Baela and Jace trying to keep things afloat. The council's restless because there's no Rhaenyra and there's no Daemon, and they haven't heard from Daemon either. So it's lacking leadership. That's why they call on Rhaenys. But everyone here is rightly worried about Cole and his momentum. Cole's army just took over Duskendale, we see, and he has the Darkland men bend the knee or die. And you'll see Lord Darkland tells Cole, you're not fit for the White Cloak. And I love the shot of Criston Cole slicing his head and the wind blowing and it all being from a further out shot. But Cole does a switch and is not going to Harrenhal. So what I love this episode did was, as we're feeling almost like Wayne Hightower's episode, being shocked at all the moves Cole is making, they are slowly revealing as the episode goes on Cole and Aemond's secret plan, which made it that much more exciting. And you'll see that Aegon will have a tantrum about Daemon taking Harrenhal, and he yells at Lord Larys, it is your effing castle. And he says, well, that castle is more crippled than I am, your grace. So the council and Lord Larys all like Daemon being there. They said it will drive him to madness as he attempts to make use of it, which, believe it or not, is pretty true right now with Daemon and all these visions. But it keeps him distracted. It keeps him at bay. Like Larys will say to Alicent later on, it's a loss for the greater good. And now Aemond will show a glimpse of the Aemond-Cole plan and getting Rook's rest. And he says, war will not be won with dragons alone, but with dragons flying behind armies of men. And this is where Aegon's going to get pissed at Aemond, plotting without his authority with Cole. So he feels left out now. He's hurt by this. And I love when Aemond in Targaryen asks him if he has a wiser plan. He says, if you do, speak it now to the council. And Aemond responds in broken Targaryen. And he literally says, I can have to make a war. It reminds me of I'm Ron Burgundy. So really, Aemond puts him in his place here. Now, Lord Larys will check in on Alicent because she was not at this council meeting. And he sees the tea. So Larys seeing that's going to be trouble. I had predicted he's going to get closer and closer to being on what's going on with her and Cole. He's already there. He's prodding at Alicent like, you must worry for him, your sworn sword, on march ever exposed to dragons. So he's trying to get to see if there's feelings there. This could connect to that tea. He's just pulling at it. And Alicent pauses, is smarter than that, and says he's handed the king. We should all pray for his victory and safe return. I love the line Alicent has to Larys because this is basically summing up what's going on this season with Alicent and Rhaenyra. She says, the war will be fought, many will die, and the victor will eventually ascend the throne. The significance of Viserys' intentions died with him. So that is going just to be the justification for everything for Alicent, whether the truth of Viserys wanting Aegon or not is true or not to her. It doesn't matter at this point. Larys loves to hear this, and he says, yes, it did, and closes the book on the history book. So he's not concerned with anything else either. That sounds like something he would say. And it runs off of Alicent saying to Rhaenyra the last episode that it was just too far gone now, no matter what the truth really is. Now, also, we see another council meeting, and everyone in there is pretty happy about what Cole's doing. It's going to plan. They're worried about feeding the dragons enough, having enough money for all of the armor, but Aegon just says to all this, you bore me, and storms out. And they proceed to go on without him. So they just do not care at all what he says. Rightfully so, because he just has tantrums. He acts like a child, especially in this moment. So he goes to mommy, and he vents to her about the council not caring about what he thinks. And he's really upset about Cole and Aemond planning behind his back, not seeking out his thoughts. And Alicent, as cold as ever, says, what thoughts would you have? And she just bluntly tells him how qualified the men around him are and how his one job is just to be silent and study around you. And she says, in the hope you might be half the king your father was. And he says, tread carefully. But this does not scare her. And she just lays into him for banishing Otto, not asking her counsel either, and valuing the people she put around him, and gives him the tough love here. You have no idea the sacrifices made to put you on the throne. And then he goes, "What would you have me do, mother?" And she says, "Do simply what is needed of you, nothing." And what's crazy is that this is the last convo they'll ever have together. And what's also crazy is she asks him to do nothing, and he will just get drunk and do the opposite of nothing. He will literally do everything. Now, Cole is pushing the men to move forward in the day, which rightfully Gwaine Hightower's like, that's nuts. But remember, Cole's not letting anyone know his secret plans with Aemond fully, as we, the audience, are trying to figure out what he's up to, because he knows he's got Vhagar on call. Now, switching to Dragonstone, the Rhaenyra music kicks in, shows up back home, and Jace gives her heat for being missing during all this chaos. And I love Rhaenyra tells everyone what she did. She's like, "I inherited 80 years of peace from my father. Before I was to end it, I needed to know there was no other path, and now I do. Either I win my claim or die." She informs them about seeing Alicent and giving her reasoning. So the council will inform her of Cole's momentum, and he's taking council members' houses one by one. This, for me, right here, when Jay says we need to send a dragon, the nerd chills kicked up, because with the episode being titled The Dance of Dragons, stuff was about to hit the fan, and I was so hyped here. From this moment on, I was just glued to the screen. It felt like peak Game of Thrones. Now, Rhaenyra wants to go with her dragon. Jace is like, "No, we can't risk you." He says, "Let me go." Then she says no to Jace, but Rhaenys says it must be her because she has the largest dragon, and it's no stranger to battle. And while this is going on, we'll see Aegon getting hammered, and he decides to ride out. So you're just pumped at this point, like, oh my god, what is going to happen at this battle here? And I love they have Rhaenyra tell Jace about the Song of Ice and Fire as a narration over everyone getting their dragons ready. And Rhaenyra has a great line: "The horrors I just have loosed can't be for a crown alone. That is why I must believe what Viserys told me." So it's that justification. It's giving her that purpose beyond just looking for the crown, like the Hightowers are basically doing. There's more to it than that for her to risk all these lives and chaos that's about to begin. Now, this battle was incredible. This has got to go in the top 5 battles of all time in the Game of Thrones universe, and especially because we really got to see an all-out dragon war. So at the battle, we see Meleys comes in, but Cole's ready for it because he's got the signal, he says, so that gives you goosebumps. And then Aemond and Vhagar are at the ready. And oh my god, seeing Vhagar in the woods, how big he is, was insane. But what I loved was Aemond sees Aegon fly above them, and he's like, "Idiot," and tells Vhagar to wait. And Vhagar just like goes down like, "Aw." But Cole is pissed when he sees Aegon and wants Aemond to come now. So he rallies the troops to protect their king, and we'll see now Meleys and Sunfire go at it. And I love the moment when Meleys scratches Sunfire and you see the guts from Sunfire hitting the men. That was great. And she bites his wing, like I said, was foreshadowed with the dragon toy dropping from Alicent. Now, that was your big clue when Aemond was telling Vhagar to wait, right? Like if he was really caring about Aegon, he would have went at that moment, but he did not. So now Aemond shows up later with giant Vhagar, which looked amazing. And Aemond says, "Dracarys at Meleys and Sunfire," and of course Aegon. And Sunfire falls straight down into the woods, so he killed Aegon. And we're seeing his little secret plan that he didn't even tell Cole about in doing that, because Cole wants to protect Aegon. He values that type of honor now, especially being the hand. So this will be crushing to Cole at the end of the episode, which we'll get to. Now, I love the moments they do with Meleys here and Rhaenys. Rhaenys has a choice to flee, but won't. She tightens up her harness and goes for it still. And she knows, you could see in the actress's eyes, she does so good here. There's like a moment of clarity, like this is a suicide mission. But she's able to knock Vhagar down. And I love when he gets up, he's just stomping on all these soldiers. It looks so cool. And there's great moments here between the dragon and Ryder, where you have Rhaenys looking at Meleys in the eye right before Vhagar grabs Meleys by the neck, and then they look at each other one more time, very sad, and they both know it's time to go. And I love Ramon's score here, and when she lets go and drops right into castle is beautiful. It's just an amazing way for her to go out with a character who had a hell of a season. And now Cole wakes up to all these burnt bodies to a crisp. So seeing that horror, which is great. And I love the moment he touches a soldier and is like, "We got to find our king." And he literally is just ashes. But you see his army's taking half the castle. I mean, it's not much, but they do technically win the battle, but half the castle is destroyed. I don't know how much of a win that is. Now, Cole also finding Aegon dead. This is absolute rock bottom for him, and they lose Sunfire on their side. Now, you would say, though, oh, well, Meleys is dead, the biggest dragon, so they're screwed. But you got to remember that not only does Daemon have Graxy still, the other thing is that he is the one who's gone in the basement, sang that lullaby to that ginormous dragon that we are going to see eventually. So it kind of actually makes it more of a level field now and not like overkill on the black side with having so many dragons at their disposal. So I think they did a really good job at balancing the wins and losses on both sides here. And the big loss being they lost their king. But honestly, Aemond is way more fit to be king, so we'll see what's going to happen there. And I'm really interested to see Cole's reaction to this, because this is going to make him, he's already nuts, but it's going to take him to the next level now, losing his king. He failed miserably at his job, and he knows it. But he doesn't know that Aemond did what he did. So that's also interesting. Right now, the only one who knows he did that is Aemond, which is crazy because I'm sure he'll keep that with him forever. And he's the story of this, like, he was bullied and then he's been picked on by Aegon too. And he was even picked on by Aegon last episode. So he really doesn't have much love for Aegon, and he knows he was more qualified at this job. That's why he was doing things behind his back. So Aemond's been a fascinating character, and he, as a villain, gets an amazing episode. He's a really, really cool character. And it was just awesome seeing Vhagar. So this episode blew me away. It took it's time to get going, but you knew the payoff was coming, especially with the title of the episode. I'm giving this one a 10 because even that buildup was spectacular. All things serving characters and serving plot and setting up a huge payoff you get here. So really love this episode. I mean, I'm still thinking about how wild that was, but yeah, total 10 for me. Let me know what you thought down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts, your theories. No book spoilers, please. Anything, and please subscribe will help in so many ways you have no idea. And I'll see you next week.